Hi. As you start on Project 3, the Literature Review, you're going to have a lot of reading and writing activities going on at one time. I want to take a few minutes today to talk you through some of the activities that you should be working on this week and in the next couple of weeks to get you really prepared to start doing the paragraph level writing of your literature review. Let's take a moment just to revisit the concept of the literature review. In this project, you're writing really literally a review of the literature from your field on the topic that you're addressing through your research question. This is not a project about your opinions on the topic. It's not a project even about finding answers. It's just looking at what has been written already on this topic, and then putting the ideas that you read about in this literature in conversation with each other. So starting to pay attention to common keywords, common concepts, theories, or strikingly different viewpoints on the same aspect of the topic, so that you can start to organize your literature review around these concepts. So let's take a minute to review part of Elizabeth Wardle's article, Identity, Authority, and Learning to Write in New Workplaces, that I had you read a few weeks ago. Early in Wardle's text, she gives us what I would call a map of the rest of her article. Begins here in the introduction, where she writes, "Here I first outline theories of identity and authority that are useful in understanding how newcomers learn to write in and for new situations." So this statement outlines the purpose of her literature review. These are theories. She's going to talk to us about the theories that help us figure out something about her topic, which is how newcomers navigate writing in their new workplaces. She also identifies in this paragraph the areas of literature that she's drawing from. So she says, I offer the socio-historic theoretical perspective I offer draws on research from two groups: compositionists, so that would be people in the field of composition, or what we sometimes are kind of using a blanket term of writing studies, who focus on cultural historical activity theory. And here she lists some of those. And then she's also drawing from the field of sociology. And so she then talks about the purpose of how bringing these texts in a conversation with each other helps her move into the research study that she is working on. Now, in your Project 3, the literature review, you don't need to make this move down here where she talks about her own research. That's something that we'll get into in Project 4. But right now, we're just looking at what has been said before and why that's important to answering the research question that you want to look at. Now, Wardle categorizes her literature review around concepts in identity. And this might look familiar to you, even if it's been a few weeks since you've read it. And then she talks about concepts of authority and makes ties between those two. Early this week would be a good time to sit down and make a research and writing plan. I have assigned you a number of tasks to work through in the next few weeks, and several of them you'll actually be working on this week. But you might have to do this project a little bit recursively, like visiting the texts, going to do some writing, looking back at texts, doing another assignment, visualizing how everything fits together in Blog 5, going back to review a text to think about it again. And then, once you get feedback from your peers and from me, there will be other things you want to go back and look at. So take a few minutes early this week to work through just writing down a schedule of what days you're going to read particular text, when you're going to write your annotated bibliography entries, when you're going to work on Blog 5, which week, whether it's week 7, 8, or 9, You want to upload your Ignite talk to the Blackboard site and the blog for your peers to read. All of these things are things you should be thinking about and planning because they're not things you can do in a couple of days. So think about when you review your sources thoroughly, and that's not just skimming through texts, but also annotating them and working on writing your annotated bibliography entries. There's an example of an annotated bibliography in the Week 7 folder where you are summarizing and then describing how this text fits into the bigger picture of answering your research question, or how this text responds to what other ideas in the field you're reading about. You also need to work this week on Blog 5, and I suggest in the Blog 5 directions that you work on that task while you're writing your annotated bibliography entries, or right after you write your annotated bibliography entries. You can't really do it very well beforehand. But I also want to take a few minutes now to talk about the Ignite talk part of your presentation or of your assignment, because you might have some questions about that process and how it's going to go. So I want to give you some thoughts on that. If you haven't looked at it yet, you should read the Project 3B multimodal presentation directions in the Project 3A folder. So click on that. As the Project 3B description says, this assignment to give this multimodal presentation is to allow you to reflect on things you've observed in your research process and to think about developing more specific research questions, some things that you might think about as you develop this presentation. Do you see any gaps in the research you've read? What else would you like to know about the topic? How are researchers gathering their data? So you might look at their methods. Are there other data retrieval methods that could be explored within this community? Meaning, is there something that you see hasn't been done yet in terms of getting information or the kind of information that they're retrieving that could help you design a project for Project 4? What kind of research would you actually like to conduct when you get into Project 4, developing your own research proposal? So this 5-minute presentation that you'll be giving is really intended to do a few things. When you take a look at this YouTube video, How to Ignite, that describes the Ignite presentation as like telling a story. So here you're going to tell us the story of your research question, identifying why it matters, telling us what you're digging up, kind of bringing us to your place in the process right now. The presentation should highlight the arguments that are being made in the research you found, and then where you think you might want to take that presentation, or that research rather. You're going to post this presentation on our class blog using the portal in this folder, and I would suggest that to make this presentation you use Microsoft PowerPoint, which is available through our Wing Connect system or through Academica, and then use the media button tool to record audio and the timer feature to set up your slides, because an Ignite talk is basically a 5-minute presentation with this series of slides that are each up there for 15 seconds, and you'll see that when you take a look at the video. So if I'm in PowerPoint, just so you can see it, there are some options that I have on the home page for media. I can record audio, and that would be where I use the internal microphone or another sound input device to record what I want to be saying behind each slide as I'm telling my research process. And then there are also ways to set up the timers on here as well. There it was, transitions. So you can transition after a particular time, and here you would set it to 15 seconds. So you play around with those things a little bit. I want to take a second just to look at this link, which I included in this week's readings, How to Give a Great Ignite Talk, I want you to take a look at this because it describes what an Ignite Talk is, but gives you some good reminders. So like I just said in the video, the speaker talks about an Ignite Talk being about a story and a really important story. So here you're telling us the story of this research question and why you're asking it and what you found so far and what is really compelling to you as you look over everything. This is a really important point. Figure out what you're going to say before you make the slides. So you might actually write this out first and then figure out what images you want to put up on the slides. So like they say here, once you know the 4 major points that you want to make, or however many that is, then work on finding images to support what you're going to say. Practice a lot before you start recording. This seems important. There's no law that says you must fill every second with talking. So practicing, giving yourself time to space out that presentation. And remembering here, don't get hung up on the slides. What you say matters most. So it's what you're telling us behind the image on the slide. And you can't be too text heavy in this PowerPoint presentation. If you have to use text, it should just be a handful of words, not a lot of information. You're telling us the information. See what other Ignite Talks look like. You can check those out. And there's some other really great tips to use in there. So you should check out this page. Like the due date in the assignment description says, you're going to self-select a due date between weeks 7 and 9 to upload your presentation to the blog. To get some feedback from your classmates and from me about this project and about how the ideas you're talking about as you look through your literature review might prepare you to draft a research proposal in Project 4. Part of our job as responders and part of your job as a presenter is to participate in a question and answer session in Blog 6, and those will be due by the end of week 9. So in our week's calendar, I have it set up so that if you want to post your Ignite Talk this week, you should have it posted by Wednesday so that your peers can take a look at those and start giving you responses by Friday or over the weekend. So same thing, week 8, if you want to post it week 8, have it up by Wednesday. If you want to post it by week 9, have it up by Wednesday so that everybody, as they're planning their weeks, can plan to review everybody else's videos and post some questions to them. Each of you are responsible for writing 2 questions for each presenter in class, and you can post those as a response to the video that they upload. The last thing that I want to point out this week is that there is a group conference scheduled for this Friday. I will post a time as soon as I know what our department schedule is. It'll be about a 30 to 45 minute window where you can come in and talk to me and some of your peers about your literature review project and get some help with that stuff. I'd also pay attention to an announcement there that will give you the details on where and when that is taking place. I also encourage you to visit the Write Zone if you need tech help with your Ignite presentation in the next couple of weeks, and it's a good idea to make an appointment to work with somebody on that, or if you just want to go and use the tools that they have there, like the recording equipment and everything to work on your presentation, you can set up a time to go do that as well. Have a great week, and I will talk to you soon.